Hey everybody, my name is Paul Esden Jr., aka Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/BoyGreen25. Real quick, you see the shirt? Braxton Berrios is good. If you want one of these puppies, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll be giving one of them away thanks to the fine folks over at ZachWilsonIsGood.com. So make sure you subscribe to be entered. But we got a bonus mock draft Monday here, and we've got an esteemed guest, a superstar guest, quite frankly. And this man's name is Dane Brugler. Of course, you know him as the draft analyst for The Athletic, but really, he is the architect of the beast. Let's bring him in. Dane Brugler. What's poppin', Dane?
Hey, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing awesome, man. I got to tell you, Dane, that for people who don't know, of course, The Beast is already out on The Athletic. Go grab it. Go subscribe, of course, The Athletic, and then download that PDF because it is juicy. And when I see the sheer volume, right, scouting reports on over 399 prospects, rankings and testing data for nearly 1,700 prospects and hundreds of schools, as you mentioned in here, from Georgia to Mount Union. But the thing that intrigues me, Dane, I'm going to be honest with you, and this is so, as a interviewer, this grabs me. I'm going to bring up a random example. One of my favorite players in the draft is Tyler Algier out of BYU. So people can get a taste, okay? If you want the whole thing, you got to subscribe to The Athletic, okay? I'm just going to give you a little taste here of in the background for Tyler Algier that I see in here in your background for him. You say he started playing organized sports at age 3, signed up for tackle football at age 7. His first love was soccer, but he decided to focus on football when he enrolled at Kaiser High School. I mean, Dane, how are you getting this kind of information? That's one prospect of the thousands that are in this thing. How are you able to do that? That level of attention to detail, to me, is what separates. As a draft enthusiast, that's the thing to me that separates yours from every other boob draft guide on the planet, quite frankly.
Well, I appreciate that. No, I'm a draft fan at heart. And so I create something that I would want to read. And I'm a big believer in to understand where these guys are headed, you need to know where they came from. And all that context is important in terms of understanding what was their first introduction to the sport? How long have they been playing? What was their recruitment like? What was their prep career like? Did they play other sports? Tyler Algier is a great example. He had one offer out of high school, and it was Division II Southern Nazarene, which nobody's ever heard of, with apologies to that school. It's a small school in Oklahoma. And they offered a partial scholarship, by the way. It wasn't even a full scholarship. So BYU offered him a preferred walk-on spot. He took it. The rest is history. And it's also fun with Algier because he played a little bit of linebacker as well. He had 26 tackles in 2019. They just wanted to get him on the field. But then the past 2 years, he was outstanding at running back and one of my favorite runners in this class.
Dane, what goes into that? How, I don't even know if you can reveal the secret sauce. Is it just grinding? Like, how do you get that level, age 3 to 7? Again, that's one player. How do you get that level of detail with all of these guys? What goes into that?
It's a year-round process. I mean, I've already have a list of notes on next year's group. It's something I work on year-round to get all this information. This is what scouts are doing. With NFL teams, they're working around the clock to get all the background on all these players. And I try to do the same thing. And obviously I don't have the same type of resources. And so, it just sometimes you have to be creative, but I get on the phone with a lot of these players, be able to talk to them on a personal level to understand, what their story is. And, it's something that I definitely take a lot of pride in. I create something that I would want to read, and with all the background info and with all the analysis, with all the testing data, I'm very proud of having all the testing data in there. No other draft guide has testing data for 1,700 players. I promise you that. So I do think that anybody that enjoys the NFL draft, you will not be disappointed with what this draft guide has to offer.
Yeah, I can confirm. Dave, you're a goddamn magician as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's got darn beautiful, man. It's absolutely fantastic. And we were joking off air, but on top of dropping the beast, I would have thought, okay, it's time to go on vacation for old Dane Brugler. I got the beast done. No, you dropped the Beast Junior, a 7-round mock draft predicting 262 selections, which is wild. Let's dive into some of the Jets picks, which I find interesting. And I know that right off the top, I know Jet fans are going to love you for picking Thibodaux in this mock at number 4 overall. And we've been talking about him a lot, but it's interesting the way that you phrased it in there. He's not for everyone. What do you mean by that?
With Kayvon Thibodaux, I think a lot has been said about just, off the field and things like that with Kayvon Thibodaux. Some teams have questions about just, Not that because I think everyone knows that he loves football. I don't think it's a question of does he like football or not. I think he genuinely loves football, but where does his brand fall in the priority list? And where do once especially if he goes to a big market like New York, where there's all these opportunities. We know Kayvon Thibodaux has his eye on a lot of different things, and that's okay. I mean, it's okay to have a diverse thinking of the world and not to be only a football player. That's perfectly fine. Not every superstar in the NFL is a football only type of guy. I mean, Tom Brady has all these various ventures that he has. Now, Tom Brady's a little, obviously, he's proven himself a little bit. Where Kayvon Thibodaux, he's not on that level where he's proven himself as being one of the best at his position. And so some teams have some questions about is he going to be all football all the time? Before he establishes himself. And that's that's something that not especially when you look at some of these teams that maybe have a first-year general manager who are looking to establish a culture. Is that a guy they want to spend? And it's not like they wouldn't take Kayvon Thibodaux at all. We're talking about a top 10 price tag. So I think that each team's going to look at it a little bit differently, and it's going to each draft board is going to look a little different. But I think the Jets sitting there at number 4, especially with Aiden Hutchinson off the board in this scenario, Trayvon Walker off the board in this scenario. Thibodaux, I think, would make a lot of sense, especially with the way we know this team prioritizes pass rush. So Thibodaux at number 4, I think it definitely has a chance of happening.
And Dane, in your mock, you say in your caption, you have those for several of the picks so people could get some more insight, kind of your thought process. You said you almost coulda, woulda, shoulda gone Sauce Gardner, which is another fan favorite for Jet fans. How close is that to reality? Because I think that's something Jet fans are wrestling with, whether Robert Saleh's passed, whether or not he'd be willing to invest that kind of premium resource into a player that obviously is very talented.
Yeah, that's it. And that's exactly the thought process that I'm sure the Jets are having in terms of, do we go with the corner? Do we go with the edge rusher? And I think, where these guys stack on the board will certainly matter. You don't take the lesser player just because, the position. Now, maybe in the second round you do that. Not in the top 10, not in the top 4. You don't take a lesser player. You take the best player available. So if they have that high of a grade on Sauce Gardner, that should be the pick. Now, if they have a similar grade of Sauce Gardner as they do with one of these pass rushers, then I think it's fair to think that they're going to lean pass rusher in that situation. So Joe Douglas, Coach Saleh, I think they're aligned with their thinking that we want to build the pass rush. We want to build up front, and that's going to be the basis for everything else we do on defense.
Let's talk about the other corner, Derek Stingley. And he's an interesting guy, obviously, a very interesting player. He just had his pro day. How many of the questions were answered at that pro day? Because there still may be some leftover material here, because we're trying to figure out, he's talented, but where does he fit in the first round?
Yeah, I think he helped himself just by getting on the field and moving around. We haven't seen him on the field in so long because of that foot injury, which is his first surgery he's ever had in his life. But it was just nice getting to see him out on the field and move around, and he tested really well for a guy that's over 6 foot, 190, ran in the mid 4.4s, 38.5-inch vert. The jumps were good. He was under 7 seconds in the 3-cone. So I think you just check those boxes. With Derek Stingley, it just comes down to, what are your doctors telling you in terms of medically, durability wise, anything to worry about long term with the foot, anything to worry about with some of his other injuries. And then do you believe that, because something I've heard from teams is just, the toughness factor. Is he going to be able to play through some of these injuries? Because that's part of NFL football, is you have to play through pain, and not every player you're convinced has that pain management where he's able to do that. So with Derek Stingley, that's something that I know he'll have to answer to teams, and some teams maybe will get the answers they're looking for, other teams might not. And so I think Derek Stingley, when it's all said and done, goes somewhere in the top 12. I think you look at 9 in the Seattle Seahawks, 12 in the Vikings. Those 2 spots make a lot of sense. If the Jets have a high grade, it can't rule them out at 10, especially if they go pass rusher at number 4. I think, the chance to upgrade your defense like that, if they have a high grade on Stingley, sure, why not?
And since we're talking about corners, let's go back to your 7-round mock draft, which again is available on The Athletic. Make sure you guys go check it out, predicting all 262 picks. Again, Dane, you're a goddamn wild man, but that's why they pay you the big bucks, pal. So let's go to the 35. We have the Jets going Andrew Booth. Very interesting out of Clemson. What do you think about the fit and the player?
Yeah, a first-round player who's going to get knocked down a little bit because of durability questions, the injuries. He's missed basically the entire pre-draft process because of a quad strain and then double hernia surgery. So, he's going to be cleared here at some point coming up in May, but after the draft. But because of that, because we haven't seen him work out before the actual draft, he could fall to that second round and right into the laps of a team like the Jets. And so with Booth, there's, I think when we boil down the corner position, you want a fluid athlete, a guy that's aggressive, and you want a guy that can go get the football. Andrew Booth hits all of those things. There's some volatility to his tape a little bit, with just the way that he handles spacing. And, that's something that he'll have to develop, especially for the Jet scheme. But you want a guy that's a good athlete. You want a guy that has all the physical ingredients. Andrew Booth has it. And I think he'd be an interesting fit if you were to last to the second round into the Jets pick.
Okay, everybody, make sure you stop what you're doing, like the video, hit subscribe, and of course, go jump on the beast. It's on theathletic.com. It's absolutely terrific. Let's stay there in the second round. Very interesting. You had the Jets diving into the offensive tackle waters with Tyler Smith out of Tulsa, and there's been a lot of speculation, obviously, with the uncertainty at tackle with Fant in the future and Mekhi Becton's uncertainty in general, that they could dip their toe in the waters with one of those 4 picks in the top 38. What do you like about Tyler Smith, and are you okay with the competitive questions with obviously who, again, being from Tulsa?
No doubt. Tyler Smith, he's cranked up with the way he plays. It is fun to watch. He needs to reel it back a little bit. 16 penalties this past year. So he needs kind of rebuilt from in terms of his fundamentals and the way he plays. But, coaches, they love it. They'd rather you have that dog in you, that the competitive fire that Tyler Smith offers, and then have you reel it back and learn some more discipline. So Tyler Smith is a guy that necessarily you don't want out there from day one, starting right away. I don't think he's at that level. He's only a redshirt sophomore coming out. So there's things to like about him right now, but you'd rather him sit, develop, and then maybe in year 2, he's ready to compete for a starting role. It's more of a long-term play if you're the Jets. I think with 4 and 10, you're getting guys that are going to compete right away and impact your team. Second round, maybe that's where you can afford to take a player that long-term is going to hit and going to be a strong investment for you. Tyler Smith could be that guy with all the uncertainty at the tackle position for this team. We just don't know what it's going to look like. And Tyler Smith could be basically an insurance policy. So going into the 2023 season, they still feel good about that tackle position if, George Fant isn't there long-term beyond this year. And then Mekhi Becton is such a wild card with his future as well.
A very popular pick in mock drafts is what you did in the third round. Chad Mumma at 69 out of Wyoming. I've heard a lot of people say it, but I haven't heard a lot of rationale behind the why. Why would he be such a good pick? What is it about him that has a lot of people buzzing?
Well, I think, first of all, you can draw the connection from the Senior Bowl. We see it every year. The teams that coach in the Senior Bowl will end up drafting 1 or 2 or maybe even more players that they coach because they got a chance to learn about the player, to learn about the person, and develop that chemistry, develop a relationship. And so I don't think it'll be any different than the Jets, who we know coached in Mobile this year, that Chad Mumma was on their roster. And that's obviously one part of it. The other part is just a darn good football player. 6'3", 240 pounds, ran in the 4.6s. You see the athleticism on tape. There's a lot to like about Chad Mumma, what he can bring to your defense. Stats, if you're big on production, all right, 142 tackles this year. He had 3 interceptions. So, there's a lot to like about his traits. There's a lot to like about how he produced in college. And so he's just a high energy tackling machine with play speed, with competitiveness. Big fan of Chad Mumma.
Sign me up based on that description. That sounds fantastic. And are there any, just on that topic, are there any other Senior Bowl guys that are natural connections to the Jets? Not necessarily that you did in your 7-round mock draft, but in general, that you could easily see any one of the players they potentially coached or even didn't, just in the Senior Bowl in general, ending up being Jets on draft day?
Yeah, I think there are a few. Troy Anderson from Montana State, if you want to stay at linebacker, one of the more fascinating athletes in this draft. Played quarterback and running back at Montana State before moving to linebacker 2 years ago. So I think that he's an ascending player. He's on his way up. He's a guy that could be on the Jets' radar. I think, tight end, with the additions they made at tight end, I don't know that it's necessarily as much of a need. but it's a strong tight end class. And if they want on day 3, want to go get a Jake Ferguson out of Wisconsin, I think that would make some sense. They also coached Cole Turner from Nevada. So, this tight end class we're not going to see a lot of tight ends drafted early, first round, top 50, but into day 3, rounds 4, rounds 5, round 6, that'll be the sweet spot for these tight ends. And I think some of those guys that they coached down there in Mobile could be fits.
Dane, how do you feel about the Jets trading? Let's go back into the first round, if we will, at 4 and 10, potentially trading back from either of those spots. There's a lot of buzz about Saints, Steelers, other teams potentially lining up to try to make a launch even higher. If you're the Jets, would you want to move back and just kind of give us that entire thought process of trading back in general in the first round?
You keep your phones ready in case you get that offer. I think that you're excited about who's going to be there for you at 4 and 10, whether that's the pass rusher at 4 and the dynamic receiver at 10, or if they go with a corner in that space. Joe Douglas might not be able to help himself. He might go offensive line. But at the same time, it's going to be enticing if you get an offer. The Steelers, if they offer next year's 1 to move up to, so you move back 10 spots, the opportunity to go into next year with an extra 1, that's awfully appealing when you're still going to have 2 first-round picks from this year. So I don't think that you go into the process with necessarily, you're hoping this happens, hoping that happens. You're ready for any option. You're ready to pick at number 10 if the right guy is there, whether that's one of these receivers or a pass rusher or whoever. But you're also keeping your options open to move back. And I think it'll be, especially picking up draft capital, because we know that Jets have a ton of picks this year. Picking up draft capital for next year, so you're continuing this trend of being able to have multiple picks in early rounds. That's something that I think will really appeal to Joe Douglas in this franchise.
All right, let's go to the second round. Would you be an advocate? It's a popular topic among Jet fans of trading up from 35 or 38. First off, would you be an advocate of the Jets doing that and being aggressive? And if so, who are some players that could be available, that could slide, that would pique the interest potentially of Joe Douglas that would make sense?
I'm always a fan of these teams being aggressive. If you see your guy, go get him. NFL teams spend so much money, so much resources into scouting and to figuring these guys out. So you can be aggressive on draft weekend. Go get your guy. And if, let's just say they go, pass rusher and, let's just say for the sake of argument, offensive line or corner with those first 2 picks. You're sitting there with picks 35 and 38, and correct, one of your top-ranked receivers, we'll say, is starting to fall down a little bit, and he's available at pick 22. Is it worth going up with using those 2 second-round picks to go up and get a Chris Olave or whoever might be that sliding receiver, Jameson Williams, whoever that might be? You passed on a receiver at 10, but here's your chance to go get a guy that maybe you considered at 10, but is slipping down for whatever reason. Go be aggressive. Go get your guy. I would be that. That's why you have all these picks. It's not just so you can load up on quantity. It's so you can be aggressive on quality if the right scenario presents itself. So the best part of having multiple draft picks in the first few rounds is it gives you options. The Jets have that, and if the right player falls, I'd be all for them going up and get their guy.
Dane, you're speaking my language. Last one before we get you out of here. Again, at 35, 38, let's just say they said, we'll just stay there, because it seems like every year players always fall into the second round. They're like, what? How the heck was that guy there? Maybe Elijah Moore last year is an example of that. Who are some players? Give me a couple that could be there at 35 or 38 that would be strongly considered for the New York Football Jets.
Yeah, and so in my mock, I went Andrew Booth and Tyler Smith. We talked about those 2 guys. If they're looking at more like, I would say, a receiver, George Pickens is really interesting out of Georgia. I think he has number 1 traits to be that guy. He's got a little bit of that discount sticker on him because of the ACL injury from last year, but he's healthy now. 6'3", 200, 4.4 speed. You love the ball tracking skills, his ability in 50-50 windows. He can be a weapon that Zach Wilson could utilize in a big way. If they want to go somewhere else on the offensive line, Bernard Raymond from Central Michigan is a player that I think that they'll like quite a bit. They could go in a secondary with, say, a Kyler Gordon from Washington. Safety, I think that might be the sweet spot for a safety, where we're going to see Kyle Hamilton go early. Maybe we get another safety or 2 in the first round. But if Lewis Seen is available, it could be, out of Georgia, could be one of those picks. Jalen Petrie from Baylor could be in the mix for one of those picks. So there's so many options there. The Jets, after round one, they're going to go home Thursday night, restack their board, and they're going to have, 2 of the first 6 picks on Friday. And that you can do a lot of things with those 2 picks. So that'll be pretty exciting.
Dane, as far as I'm concerned, you're one of the best in the business. I love having you on. It's great catching up after some time. I know you got a budding family. You talk about a little bit of that in the Athletic, for the beast of making that happen. I guess that final nugget, how much did you enjoy that? Putting this together, the biggest one ever, biggest draft pool ever, but having this family and then your beautiful and understanding wife, which helps that process as well, being able to balance that life and still put out this amazing product.
Yes, I have a very understanding wife. And the first thing I did after I finished the guy that day, I went out and bought flowers and, just very, very appreciative. She lets me do this as my career. 4 little kids at home, including 2 twins that are 9 months old. So it's a hectic household, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. And, I've got swim practice tonight, T-ball later on. So no vacation for me. It's going to stay busy, but you know what? I wouldn't change it for anything. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Of course. Well, God bless, Dane. Thanks for catching up with us. We really appreciate it. And good luck through the rest of the draft process.